Okay, Christine Michaels is here with us today. She has 25 years of experience in the chamber industry, as well as work in economic development, public relations and tourism. She came to Oak Ridge at a wonderful time, right? 1 year ago, and is serving as president, after serving as president of the Fayetteville, North Carolina chapter. She's a native of upstate New York, not Rochester, are you? No, okay. And worked at chambers there as well as in Virginia and Florida. Her passions are history, estate sales, and animal rescue. And she's going to update us on the chamber. It's great to hear from you.
Well, thank you all for having me. I will try not to disrupt any of these sophisticated electronics today while I'm speaking, but delighted to be here. I just did celebrate my 1-year anniversary at the chamber, and hope this is, you hearing me okay? And it was a very unusual time to come because some of you I have met on Zoom and seen you, your face, and some I've met with masks on, and to see it in reverse is a little challenging. It's been hard because normally a chamber would be very active, and we are all about networking and meetings and things like that. And our board, and Laurel's on our board, has been very conservative and cautious as far as that goes. So we have just started in-person meetings again. We've been doing ribbon cuttings with masks on and trying to resume normal operations. So I'm very pleased to say that we just did have a brand new event called Small Business Networking about a week ago. And that is where our small business members get to sit in a room and introduce themselves and what they do. And it was such great networking that they were still going at it a good half hour after the meeting was ended. And I'm like, this is what it's all about, making the local connections, getting businesses to patronize one another, the shop small, shop local, give local. All of that is what your typical chamber represents. Our chamber isn't any different in that we are primarily small businesses. Tony said one of my passions is history, and I happened to find, digging through our files, something that the city historian, the one before Ray Smith, had written. And he actually took every year since the chamber started and had a recap of that year. Does anybody know what year the Chamber of Commerce was founded? Close. Getting closer. It was 1949 was our official incorporation, but it actually started before that with a group of businessmen who, after the war, really wanted to see Oak Ridge become an actual city. And the chamber leadership at the time were the ones who worked towards getting the land actually released from the Department of Energy so that the businesses could own their properties rather than just lease them. And I thought how fascinating that was. And I was reading about the things that were really monumental in Oak Ridge's history that the chambers had shepherded, if you will. They made a lot of trips to Washington. They lobbied for things. And I would like to think that our chamber could be that relevant today, that we could be a voice when we see something that's needed in the community. And we have an advocacy committee that actually looks at those types of things. So they meet every month, and we've had various speakers. We've talked about what's going on with downtown and how exciting that can be. We're hearing about things that are going on in education and other types of legislation. We just heard about the demolition debris facility at the lab, and that services the lab in Y12, and what they're planning on constructing another one and why that's needed. So we have access to some fantastic speakers every month. And we also have a legislative agenda that we create, that we give to our legislators. We take it to city government, we take it regionally and to the state, a little bit of federal when that applies. But we do that in conjunction with the other chambers in the area. So we do that with the Blunt Partnership and with the Knoxville Chamber. And this year, Anderson County and Farragut West Knox is joining us in that. So we're really happy that we can continue that history that we have in trying to make Oak Ridge a better place, always striving to be better, right? But we're happy with what we have. And I think one of the reasons I came here, I've been at chambers in various states, Virginia, Florida, upstate New York, and in North Carolina. And this is my first time in Tennessee. And when I interviewed for the job, I decided it was a Zoom interview, which if you've never done one of those, it's tremendous pressure, I'll just say. But I thought, well, it's not too far. It's about 10-hour drive. I will go and check out this community and see if I really want to pursue this. And my friend and I came over, and the minute that I hit the turnpike, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking at the mountains, and I'm looking at the trees and the beauty, and seeing the river. And we hit all of the spots. I'm big into World War II history. And so we did the Friendship Bell and the commemorative walk. And you couldn't go to any of the museums when we came because they were all closed, very disappointing. And I was just amazed with what this area had to offer and how beautiful and clean this city is and how safe I felt. And I didn't have any doubts at that point that I wanted to pursue this position. And I'm very, very thankful that y'all picked me to lead this. But I think that we have more work to do. Our chamber is a small business chamber. The bulk of our membership is in Oak Ridge, and it's small business. We're very fortunate that we have the major contractors, the major organizations. We have the lab. We have a lot of nonprofits, right, Beth? Yes, who are members of ours as well. But we're trying to really provide programming for our small businesses. And so we're going to be introducing a few other events, some training programs, especially on human resources. There's some really impactful legislation coming out that around COVID and masking and vaccine mandates and all of that, that can really, I think, provide significant challenges to some of our local businesses. And so we want to help guide them through that process with HR. And so we're planning a series on that. Now that we can roll out some new things, I'm pretty excited. Have any of you been to our primetime events? Okay, so we do an event. It's like an outdoor business expo. It used to be in our parking lot. We just did it. We moved it to Jackson Square this time though. And that was great because we had interaction with all the local businesses in Jackson Square. So we do plan to continue that, and we're happy to have interaction with other organizations to help co-host things for us. We are bringing back the traditional format of the parade. So December 11th, we will be coming down the turnpike once again, ending at the high school, judging stand at the chamber. We've got right now, I think, over 40 entries, and we would like to expand that. So if the club or any of you individually wants to have a vehicle or march or have a full-blown float, we would love to have you be part of the parade. Last year, we did a reverse parade, and that was where we put the floats in a row and the cars came by to look at them. It was pouring rain, it was cold, and we still had a tremendous amount of support from the community. There were kids out there dancing in the freezing rain last year for about 2 hours nonstop. It was amazing to see the people come out for that. And we had about 1,000 cars go by, and all of those cars were full. There was grandmas and grandpas and kids and parents, and they were all hanging out the window looking at the floats. So this year, hopefully we'll have good weather. We'll be back to normal. We always, of course, have Santa. But if you're thinking about participating, please let us know. The other thing we're planning is going to be awesome because it's going to be at the Children's Museum. So at the beginning of January, we're doing something called Extraordinary Evening. And we started that a couple years ago. We wanted to repeat it, couldn't because of COVID, so we're bringing it back. But that's our annual awards. It's our annual meeting, and we recognize a business of the year, a small business of the year, a nonprofit of the year, a volunteer of the year, I'm going to miss somebody, entrepreneur, and a lifetime achievement award. So that is quite an evening to be at if you're interested in attending, but nominations are open right now, and we are looking to get a lot of people nominated for those awards. There's a lot of deserving people. It's going to be a hard choice, but our members actually get to vote on who the winners are. So we'd like to have a strong batch of nominations, and then we'll be redecorating Best Gym. And I guess it quite transforms itself, is what I've heard. So we are really looking forward to that. Some of the other things that we work on, we're a little bit more quiet about that you might not realize. Housing is one of them. Kelly is the chairman of an ad hoc committee, if you will, that's working on housing. And by that, we mean having affordable housing options and having more housing options, because as you probably know, for a while, Oak Ridge's population remained very steady, and we really didn't have a lot of housing options or a lot on the market for people to choose from. There are people who walk into our office literally every day saying, I want to move to Oak Ridge. Where can I live? And right now we have pretty much a single sheet that we can give them, because believe it or not, our apartment complexes are 98% full. So if there's an apartment that comes on, it's gone. So the lofts at Main Street are going to be a huge addition for the demand that we're seeing. And then we also have people like the Housing Authority and the Land Bank on this committee trying to work to make sure that as with this really tight market and houses really selling right away, that we don't outprice ourselves so that people who need more affordable homes have nowhere to go. So that's a tremendous group. It meets every month. And thank you for leading us for several years, I believe, right? Yeah, Kelly's been putting in a lot of time. So we're happy to be involved in that. We also do economic development. So we have a contract with the city so that when the state issues what they call an RFP, which says that we have company, and they always give it a code name, so project this or that, is interested in this many square feet or this many acres, and they have to have rail on their site, or they need a warehouse, or whatever it happens to be. They send us a list of criteria, and what we have to do is figure out, do we have a property that matches that? And then if we do, and we can submit, then we've got to run all of this data, because they may say, well, we need 80 engineers, or we need 100 manufacturing workers. So we run all the numbers through these databases, and we put together a proposal and send it off and try to compete. Unfortunately, this past year, really, there's been a tremendous amount of interest in Oak Ridge, but we don't have either a building that is big enough or has the right criteria. They all seem to want 50,000 square feet, expandable, even some of them up to 300,000 square feet. And they want a loading bay and a dock and high ceilings, or they want lab space or this or that. And we can't meet that. So we're really actively trying to get maybe someone in the private enterprise who could put up a spec building, purchase a piece of property for development purposes, and see what we can generate, because the demand is there. East Tennessee is a really popular place, and having the lab in our backyard is such a selling point, because anyone in a technological field wants that opportunity to be able to work with a lab. So I think we have a lot to sell. We just need a piece of land to put them on. There are a few lots still available at the Horizon Center, and so we're trying to market those. A lot of those need to be cleared first before something can happen to them. So that's a factor too. But we are trying to get industry here. Most of the proposals we're seeing are very high paying jobs. They may not be, 1,000 jobs, but they are usually technical and pretty well paying with good benefits. And that's what we really want to get here. And then we want them to live here and support our schools. So those are some of the other things that we are working on. We're also really concerned about the workforce, because if you drive anywhere, you see help wanted, help wanted, help wanted, and trying to get people to return to work is challenging. We're seeing a lot of people having issues with daycare. Moms who need to return to work can't find daycare, or at least affordable daycare for their kids. So you're losing about half your workforce right there. And the other thing we want to do is try to capture our graduates. So if they're coming out of UT or Pellissippi or Rowan State, you see I have my little Rowan State face mask. We want to keep those kids here, not moving to Atlanta or Chattanooga or Nashville, but staying here and supporting our economy. So we've created a workforce committee, and I was very privileged to get to go to something called the Tva Workforce Institute. And it is a tremendous program that TVA puts on to teach you really how to do those things, how to innovate and provide daycare and incentivize that, and put training programs in place where you have a need, and how to crunch the numbers better to tell our story better. So we're working on all of these things all at once. And we still have in our office, if you've ever been in our big sprawling building there, we also have the Small Business Development Center. And we have something called PTAC, Procurement and Technical Assistance Center, is in there, and Explore Oak Ridge. So we are our building serves as a visitor center as well. So we have a lot of traffic in and out of our building. Sometimes we can't even use our own conference rooms because we're so busy, and we've got groups using our building all the time. So there's a lot that we participate in that you may not hear about, but we are constantly promoting Oak Ridge. And so that magazine that you all have at your table is one thing that we do. Every year that magazine comes out, and when a visitor comes in, they get a copy. We give it to any of our prospects that we're working with for business. And so that's a way to kind of showcase some of the things that Oak Ridge offers in a real easy, nice, colorful way. Here's your magazine. People love it. We also do road maps. So if you need a map or you need magazines, you've got people coming to the area, people, maybe some family you want to convince to move here, come over and we will get you some packets of information and make sure that you can sell us the best way possible. I don't know if you've got any questions about what we do or where we're headed, but happy to have been here for a year, and thank you guys for having me out. It's nice to have an in-person meeting to speak to rather than a Zoom.
And if somebody does have a question, you repeat it since we're recording.
Sure, absolutely.
Question?
Question is, how does the Oak Ridge Chamber compare to other chambers I've been at? I have worked in chambers in cities that were much, much larger. So Alexandria, Virginia, Fayetteville is actually bigger than Chattanooga. I have to say that I think the quality that this chamber has, even though it's a smaller community, is the unity of the community. Because in other places I have been, that has not been the case, where you've got different agencies actually working together on something. The housing committee, bringing together all of these different partners, the level of, I guess, generosity, you would say, here is amazing. The willingness of people to volunteer and to step up. I found out that we've had people doing the parade for like 12 years, volunteering year after year after year. So that has really been amazing to me, even with a pandemic going on, that, like I said, for those people to still come out and try to do a Christmas parade. And by the way, I also found out the first reference I found to the parade was the 1950s. So that's how long we've been doing the parade. So there's a lot of tradition here, a lot of history, which I absolutely love. But I think this area is really primed to be more forward thinking as well, because some of the scientific advances that we have, I haven't been in a community in a long time that was like that. I did have the privilege to work near Kennedy Space Center with the shuttle program and a lot of aerospace stuff. But I have really missed that sort of scientific aspect. I didn't make it I didn't even finish chemistry in high school. I don't understand science, but I appreciate that other people do. And so that really impressed me about this community as well, that you've got such a history, but then you're still working on all of these things that are going to impact lives in the future. So, yes, ma'am.
I heard a very interesting talk yesterday about it was the 50s that had been invited to the license out of what national lab that had been the most profitable and made the most money. Wow. But in other words, technology developments that were created that didn't have to be the private sector. And asked the question, I said, back in the day, when somebody had an idea in the lab, that was ended up for private. What can you do to encourage more of these things to actually do? He said, one of the things that we in space, and in particular with a wet chemistry lab.
Yes.
So for advocates and small business people might want to get together.
So to summarize, the comment was a lot of spinoffs are coming out of the lab, and how do we keep them here? And it is that same situation. We have heard multiple times that some type of lab space is needed. And if we had that, we could try to place these companies here. So we have been meeting with several private developers to try to encourage them. I mean, obviously it's a big investment for them to put out that kind of money in the hopes that, you know, if you build it, someone will come, that whole thing. But so we're trying. There are not a lot of private incentives. If a governmental entity has control of a property, then there are certain grants and things that can come from the state, for example. But a privately held piece of land is not eligible for that, unfortunately. So we have to find another way to help those developers make it happen. But that is definitely a goal of ours, is to try to keep businesses like are going through what they call innovation crossroads. There are businesses that come in and work for 3 years with the lab. We want to keep them when they're done with that 3 years. So the first thing we're doing is actually next month hosting a reception for them to convince them how great Oak Ridge is and to stay once they're done with their 3 years. So cross your fingers that we make a good sales pitch, and then eventually we will need to find them a place to locate. Thank you.
One more question, maybe? Go ahead.
It's not really a question. I just want to let Christine know that our club and our Christmas parade float.
Yay.
Been in the parade for many years. And what we do every year, we hand out about 4,000 books to the children.
Oh, awesome.
That's why those books
Okay, I wondered what that was for. Okay.
Instead of candy, we hand out all of us.
Oh, that is wonderful. Okay, excellent. Well, and please put a post on our Facebook page to get some more books donated. You can take advantage of our Facebook page and we appreciate you guys being in the parade. This will be my first true parade here. Last year, I dressed like an elf and I was out in the rain watching the cars go by. So it'll be kind of fun to watch the floats go by this time. But thank you guys for participating. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What a delightful idea to get ways to get more books. Christine, we're so glad you got to come today and be face to face.